Thank you all of you for being here, flying from different country, coming to the panel on the same day, and everybody who is here. And it's been a good day since the first keynote. We had another keynote and then a panel, and we just had something, so we are okay with that as well. So I chose this panel because I am also a student of Masters in Sustainable Development. So please help me in doing some of my assignments with answering these questions. So the presentation has already told us a lot about SDGs, and we somehow know a bit about SDGs and things. Today we are talking about how sustainable development goals can be influenced by businesses and how sustainable development goals can influence businesses, both the aspects. And for that, I'm not taking a lot of all 17 goals to talk about. I'm sticking to few of them. And I would request all of you to just have that back of your mind when you are answering these questions. We have these goals on health and well-being, which is the goal 3. The goal 6, which is clean water and sanitation. The goal 7, affordable and clean energy. Goal 8, decent work and economic growth. Goal 11, sustainable cities and communities. Goal 12, responsible consumptions and production. Goal 15, life on land. Goal 17, partnerships for goals. So as we know, all these 17 goals are very much in line with everything that we do, and so is to business. But we are trying to be a bit steep in talking about these goals when we are discussing about businesses. So I would start the panel with Renaud, and I would like to ask you, what do you expect, or what the UN agencies or the creators of SDGs expect from the businesses for getting the goals accomplished by 2030 and also beyond that?
Good. Thanks very much, Ashish. A tough question to start with, but let me first thank you for having me on the panel. It's always a pleasure to interact with businesses and, of course, with a lot of young people. I'll start with a simple statement. The SDGs won't be achieved without the business sector, full stop. And that's very clear. I think if we compare the MDGs to the SDGs, and I trust everybody is well informed in the room to know what the MDGs were. The Millennium Development Goals were those 8 goals between 2000 and 2015, and they were all, I would say, social oriented. Right? It was education, it was health, it was gender equality, of course, first and foremost, poverty. But at the time, the member states had left out a lot of the, I would say, more challenging, problematic issues, such as good governance, corruption, human rights, climate change, and who's responsible for polluting and therefore for paying for depolluting the planet, etc. So all those topics were on purpose left out so that we could reach a consensus among the countries to still work on a common agenda, which was the MDGs. And because of the political success, whether we've achieved them or not is another issue, but the political success of getting all the member states of the UN against the MDGs, that allowed then us all to be more ambitious in 2015 when we decided what would be after the MDGs. So we've kind of upgraded the level of ambition to the SDGs. And the SDGs are an extremely, extremely ambitious agenda, but also, and because we're with business people today, they are a very costly agenda. And a lot of studies have been done now to look at the price tag of achieving the goals. But what is less often discussed is what is already being done, right? So I'm not going to challenge the introduction that we heard from our colleague from Facts, because I don't like to challenge, even though I do, but we'll keep this for another part of the conversation. But two things. I mean, first, I don't like it when I see the UN's SDGs, right? Because this leads to a wrong interpretation. Because then I get people talk to me about, oh, Renaud, you and your goals. Or what are you doing for the goals? And I keep on saying, I don't have to do anything for the goals. I actually only have to monitor as a UN person what countries are doing, because the commitment to the goals is not the UN as an organization. It's the members of the organizations who are the member states. And I'm not saying the governments, I'm saying the member states. Because of course in every country, let's take Nepal, the government has signed off. But they did it on behalf of all of you, of the people, of the society. And in society, you find these gentlemen. By the way, we have to improve our gender membership of panels also. Right? Just in bracket. Well, let's go change. We can all come back in long dresses. But,
You can do that.
but yeah, but not today. It's too early in the day. So businesses have a fundamental role to play. But we always get the question, so what do you expect from them? Well, they are already doing a lot. Who creates jobs in a society? It's not the government. And I'm sure if we add your employees and your employees and your employees, we already have a sizable amount of people who every day under Goal 8, because I do trust that you offer decent employment and not undecent employment, I'm sure that through your decent employment, you pay decent wages, which allow those individuals to send their kids to school, to provide them with good education and good health, and therefore chip in the overall objective, which is to end poverty. Right, so a lot of companies are a little bit scared and therefore stay shy of engaging directly on SDGs because they think that it's added to what they already do. So the first message that I, as the UN person here on the panel, want to give out to all of you is that all of you, irrespective of your role in society, you already contribute to the achievement of the SDGs. If you're a kid, a child, you go to school, you do your homework, you get good grades, you go to the next class, you are contributing to the SDG. If you're the CEO of a big hospital, by ensuring that people who come have affordable health care and get quality health care, you are contributing to the SDG. By creating jobs in Bharatpur, in the Coke firm, in plant, you are. By providing access to financing and allowing enterprises to borrow money and invest and reinvest and make more money, you are contributing to the SDGs. But that's not enough, right? What you already do is not enough. We're not going to achieve by 2030, even if it's a long period of time, the SDGs if we remain business as usual. Right? So the first message is to say you already contribute, so don't be shy and engage. The second message is business as usual is just not going to make it. We really need to top it off and do more. And this is what events like today should contribute to.
Great. So the thing that you said gets me to a different question to ask you. But before that, I'll get these gentlemen to answer that question. A lot of time what happens is when you talk about SDGs or these goals or social thing, it directly relates to corporate social responsibility thing only. So how do you all three frame, you are from the hospital background, the finance and the industries, and he talked about how already you have been contributing. Does it have to be corporate social responsibility, or how do you say that you are a responsible business from your perspective in your own industry? I'll start with Ambuj.
Firstly, thank you to all of you for having us over here. And namaste to all, Happy New Year. And I asked you to start easily and we'll go on with more difficult questions, but thank you for this. You know, we've seen different phases, and I'm talking on behalf of industries mostly right now. Over a long period of time, they have been engaged in some or the other activity, which they either bracket it into sustainability or CSR or charity or the various forms of or names of it. But till some time back, or till few years back, all that was seen as like either cutting a check or funding something, or there were programs around it. However, nowadays, and especially as we grow along and as the consumers grow along, this has to become an active part of the business strategy itself. So CSR is not a separate program. SDG is not a program or a project that we would want to take, but it has to be integrated into the overall business strategy, into day-to-day operations, because there has to be someone responsible, accountable, some goals in mind. Ultimately, there are two reasons why we need to do it. And I'll come to the UN reason later, or the government part later. The biggest reason why the companies need to do it is because companies will only survive or will thrive if the communities that they work in thrive. So it's simple business continuity which ensure that we participate in that. Taking that a step further, consumers like you, if a brand is not responsible, I think marketing does a lot to build brand love, or people love brand because of marketing and products and packaging and all that. I think overall the way company responds to sustainability or integrates it into their business builds a lot of love too. There are direct linkages. Whenever we do any sort of a research, there are questions asked directly. There are linkages which link it back to, oh, you have been doing this, but at the same time, you have been, and I'm not shy away from certain questions that we have been asked. Oh, you sell a lot of beverages, but what about water that you use from groundwater? Now, it is a business necessity for me. In order to win the love of the consumers, in order to carry on with my business, to earn a social license, so to say, sustainability becomes an integrated part of our business strategy. So there's a lot which has changed over the years, and I see a lot of companies doing it. You might term it differently. You might not be addressing all 17 SDGs, but in some form or the other, if you're not building it into your business strategy, then somewhere you're not making a sustainable business itself. So from a business continuity lens, it has to be fully integrated. Yeah.
Yeah, and this was what in the presentation also, the business strategies should have their sustainable development goals with further sustainability was spoken, and you rightly spoke what I wanted to hear from you. And I would like to ask the same question to Anukul and then Jairam sir.
Good afternoon. I see a lot of young faces, so very encouraging. Great. I will only speak about the banking and the finance sector in Nepal and what we are doing and not doing in this field. Yes, I think we need to go further and do a business strategy. Putting these 17 goals into mind. We have a lot of strategy papers and things and all, but I have not seen this in this kind of a format. It is there, yes, certain things we are doing, certain we are not doing, but not in a formatted way that this is the ultimate goal. And we are here to do some business, earn profit for our stakeholders and for shareholders, but yes, to build, as you were saying, that a social model. And because we are here providing services to the public at large, and they're the ones who own us also. So how do we get into it, where they feel this part has to be done, and every step we are taking is moving in the right direction. So one thing I would just like to bring to the notice of the UNDP head here is, and somehow I feel the engagement with the most powerful group of NGOs in the country is not there, which is the commercial banks. We employ the best of people here, we pay them the best of money, we make the best of profits, we are everywhere, we know who's going to migrate where, whether it is in the country, outside the country. We know their future plans. When somebody, a young child, comes to us and opens an account, we know what this child wants to do in life. But are we doing enough there? I don't think so. I don't think so. So in our own way, all the banks are doing. On the other, there are development banks also. They call themselves. And then there are microfinance institutions. They are there for this purpose. But we are all, sort of moving without coherence. It has to be some sort of a coherence. If you know, all of us are from Nepal, that there is an environmental and social responsibility law which has been passed. Any company we associate with or give loans to, that ESR certificate has to be given by the credit team. That is fine. Is it only on paper, or are we really following it through? Am I saying that if I have lent to you as a hotel and I find you don't have plastic bottles, fine. I had that point, but I cut it off. But you have plastic flowers. Why do you have plastic flowers? We on our
It's too expensive to have real ones.
no, they don't have them at all. See, the issue is it has to be zero tolerance. And I must tell the hotel, I am not going to lend to you further if you do this. Because it suits my purpose, I am making money out of the hotel, including this hotel. Yes, I let it go. At the end of the day, we are cahoots, we have our hands shaking shaking each other's hand under the table, and on the top, we are fighting it out, but we are basically, here to make money out of consumers. That's not. So basically, we have started doing it now very slowly, very slowly. And even, like we mentioned, corporate social responsibility, but some organizations like mine, right from the beginning, not from today, maybe in the 70s, we call it community development services. So the community development services actually come much ahead. CSR is 1% mandated, we look at it as a kind of a tax. But then that is the bare minimum. If the board so decides, we can go even ahead. Another thing is, what we have found out, especially in Nepal, is the more we engage with society, the more the society loves us, the more business we get. So if we build it up in this way, which at least my bank is doing, Nepal SBI Bank is doing, without much of an effort, if I don't advertise, I've got some advertising friends from the advertising agencies, I save about 15 to 20 crores a year. But am I spending that to benefit the same people who are benefiting? So there are a lot of things. I will just share with you, people are here, I don't know whether people in the press are here. Who gives the lowest rate of interest on saving bank deposits? It's my bank, 2.25. Right? And which is the bank which grows the most in savings bank? It is my bank. Which is the bank which is not advertising at all? It is me. Why is this money coming to me and staying with me? It's not going to banks which will pay you 7% on savings. Because you don't love me. Do you love me? And why do you love me? Not because in the banking sector I'm paying the most. My salary structure starts at 45,000. And we are the first choice. When people, last year we asked a management trainees vacancy. I got 19 toppers from Nepal to join me. They all came. So the issue is, how do I use this young force, average age in my bank is around 31, to get into SDGs. So now what we have done is, we have done away with plastic. In another 45 days, I was talking to Ashish, we'll do away with paper. No paper, no plastic, no folders, nothing much. All future vehicles which will be purchased will be, BYD vehicles or something. So the thing is, if you believe something, you got to do it, and do it yourself. And the most powerful people, if they don't do, so who is doing? We are cutting down on air travel, which may not, my friend may not like, but we are cutting down on air travel. Everything has got to be on video conferencing, if at all. So unless necessary, fine. So we are cutting down on that. We went to, I had gone to Glocal with our team, and we were looking at some hospitals. We found on the World Environment Day, this hospital there, the Swiss hospital there, was burning medical waste right in the open. 100 meters away there was, that time, so the environment minister was giving a speech. So I went and told him, stop this. 1 year has gone by, it has not stopped. What do we do about it? All of us are sitting here. What is the zero tolerance? I was waiting for that lady to come. She was supposed to come on 29th of May on the Everest Day. She didn't turn up. She would have been the first person I would have taken a photo and put it on Facebook, which was gone in 38 countries, because I'm part of an international bank. Like, this is the lady who's got these two hospitals running, but burns waste right at Namche and Lukla. What do you talk about? So I'm exposing myself. I'm not talking easy things. Where is the zero tolerance? All of us are sitting here. Why don't we start it? I mean, talks and talks and talks. I've been here for 3 years now. But how do you do that? So these kind of things, like we are, everything is now, whatever we give is local. And I told you, we found out that, you know, the flowers and all which we gift, we checked out.
I'm keeping that for the last because I want that to be exposed in a very particular way. Yeah. So and thanks for spreading that love that you said amongst the customers and all the people. Now moving on to the hospitals, which is a very integral part of well-being.
So first time when I saw these SDGs, I said, "What's wrong with these UN guys?" You know, I said they. Yeah. So they said. These MDGs had like 8 and now we have 17. And then there were like 18 goals and now there is like some 170 or something. I said, I can't even remember my 10 commandments. Forget about following them. Remembering all those 17 is going to be a challenge. But then when I started looking more closely at it, I must admit that this is audacious, and especially from a healthcare standpoint, it absolutely fits into our strategy. Now, before I tell you just like how it fits into our strategy, the problem I think is either with the MDGs and with the CSR, as Ambuj said, it was about cutting a check. You know, but I think countries like Nepal don't need anybody's charity. What we need is capacity. We need to build our capacity. We don't need anybody's charity. And the problem is when we think about a lot of these things, it's always been about somebody's going to give us a handout. And with this SDG, I think it would promote a lot of collaboration, cooperation, exchange of ideas, and it's truly interdependent, especially in hospitals. For example, you know, if you look at SDG 3, which is kind of the hospital thing, I've just looked at 3 or 4 things, and we're doing something specific. Number one, if you look at the under 5 child mortality in our country, it is staggeringly shocking. You know, we lose 40% of our children in the rural areas. In fact, the problem that I see in Nepal, I've been in Nepal only about a year now, so I won't claim I know much, but I see that rural Nepal is like probably 10 to 15 years behind urban Nepal. You have children, we have a lot of children that we lose before they reach the age of 5, even though our immunization and other statistics are okay. But what I figured was that 65% of our population in Nepal do not have access to healthcare within 30 minutes, 65%. But 95% of Nepal has an access to a cell phone tower. So what we started doing was we started building this app, for example, where mothers can actually monitor the milestones of their children when they're born. So, you know, did they get their vaccines? What's the circumference of their head as they grow? You know, there are specific milestones, and if they don't meet it, there are alerts. So this is a specific way in which we think we can do something very practical that would actually help a mother in Lukla or Kailali or Jang or Dang or Japa or parts of Nepal, because they have access to a cell phone tower and they have access to technology. They don't have access to healthcare, for example. When I came to this country, I saw everybody, if they had a medical problem, the first flight to India. If they have a little bit more money, Thailand. A little bit more money, Singapore, or maybe elsewhere. And there were 3 reasons. I started looking at why is it that this is happening, you know. It's good education. It's actually a more egalitarian society, I think, even more than India. There are more women in the workforce here, way more than there are in India. And then it came to me that there were 3 reasons why people in Nepal just take the first flight out. Number one, there are a lot of doctors here who actually make more money getting a commission by sending patients out than by practicing medicine. Number 2, the morbidity and mortality statistics in our ICUs is the pits. It's between 16 to 40%. So you would be scared to go to an ICU in this country because you don't have early warning signs. You don't have systems that make it safe. And then finally, people don't trust the diagnosis. So although it's part of SDG because it talks about early warning signs and mitigating risks, we're putting together programs now which will actually help develop a framework of safety. Because, you know, Abdullah is here. Airlines are the most safest, you know, in terms of the number of people they fly and the number of people they kill. They're the safest. We are the most unsafe people. You come to a hospital, I guarantee you, it's the most unsafe place. I'm sorry, I'm saying this, but it is true. If you look at the morbidity and mortality statistics, going to a hospital is like bungee jumping. I'm not even joking for a minute. If you look at the number of morbidity and mortality, people go to bungee jumping, we beat bungee jumping. The safest is the guy in front of you and probably nuclear reactors. So we want to learn, and that's what I was trying to reach Abdullah. We want to learn how we can reduce the risk. And you know why, Abdullah? Because if a pilot screws up, he dies with the passengers. A doctor, he makes his money, even if somebody else dies in front of him. So how do we make the doctor accountable, right? So I think we are trying to put together, but the problem is, I have a promoter, I have an investor. They don't give a damn about SDG. They want to see if they get their 22% IRR. Planet Earth needs to be left for our children. Who gives a damn? I want my paycheck. I want to make sure my stock is doing well. I want to make sure my EBITDA is okay so I get good multiples and my valuations are okay if I want to sell a part of my stake. So the problem is there are so many stakeholders, Planet Earth, shareholders, investors, that it truly needs good corporate governance to integrate this. You know, it needs guts to say, because CSR is like some HR person who has some part-time job, or she's a CSR person. It's never a board discussion, you know. Maybe in some companies, large companies, in most places it's like, it's there, it's like a side dish. It's not the main dish. But being in healthcare, I can tell you that SDG fits so beautifully with nutrition, with water, that I'm just glad that you know, I'm in healthcare. And maybe if I get fired, if you hire me in UN, I'll promote SDGs.
You did it very well, right, Reno?
No, absolutely. Maybe can I just add? I'm sorry, I know you don't like me doing this, but you see why I enjoy coming to those events now, because 3 years ago, I can tell you, we would not hear this type of discourse. And it's really a credit to the business community to have adopted the SDGs as a reference framework. And they do it for basically 2 reasons. And they've just said it in different words, but I'm going to say it even more straightforwardly. They do it because it is in their interest. Right? They do it, and this is my job, is to convince them that I'm not asking for their pity or for feeling sorry for the poor people out there in the mountains. I'm telling them the SDG is a business opportunity for you. Because if we solve, you're here, so I'm going to, again, zoom on you. You know, do you think people enjoy spending, I don't even know how long it takes to go from, let's say, Japa to Kathmandu in a bus? Who enjoys that? Everybody wants to fly, right? So if you increase the level of income, well, that those buses are going to go where they should in any way be now, not in the future, which is in the trash and recycled, please. Right? And less road accidents. And you have a business that's thriving, which is domestic airline. So Abdullah, you have to rethink your Turkish internal flights now, right? But they're doing it because they understand that unless their community and their clients are in good health, well educated, with minimum income, they will not thrive because they have less consumers. You cannot ask, you know, as good as you are, if you don't have collaterals, it's going to be difficult to borrow from a bank. So you need something to start with, right? And the same thing, imagine you have to put all those kids in schools. That's one of the targets of the SDGs, number 4. Well, you need to have the schools. It means you need to have the buildings. The buildings needs to have windows, tiles on the roof, water connected. All this represents, for the person who produces windows, markets. Right? So the business, achieving the SDGs alone is a business opportunity. And then the killing point, I always keep it. If you don't achieve the SDGs, you're done. You're done. Because planet Earth, biggest firework in 2030. Even maybe before.
Even if Trump disagrees.
Even if Trump disagrees. He'll be the first one. No, we shouldn't say that. But this is a very a very serious issue. The sustainability of our ecosystem is under threat. That's why I'm saying business as usual is just not the way to go. And we have to understand that. And irrespective of how many healthcare systems you put out there, how affordable they are. If there's another earthquake and we're not resilient, if there's in Terai another flood, which is coming, I mean, the only thing we don't know is the date, again, all this for nothing. Right? So we really have to see this, as you rightly say, as a package. It's not 17, 1 plus 1 plus 1, it's 17. Right? You have to address all of them at once because they are all interconnected and they're not an option.
Very true. And what he said is the difference, like the CEO Unplugged platform has been running since 4 years. And talking about SDGs this well and this frankly was very difficult. Last year, same panel, we had Mr. Upendra Mahato, who is the chair of Medicity Hospital. And we were talking about some business thing, very strict business. Anil Chitrakar was the moderator, and we were direct to the business. Today, same company, and we are speaking about SDG with the CEO of the same company. So that's the beauty of things that happening while we are moving forward with an objective. And now, with all what we spoke, I'll have 2 or 3 questions after the questions that you guys might have been popping up. हाम्रो कुराहरु सुनेर सबै आइरहेछ होला केही न केही सोधौं भनेर. So I have the first hand there. If somebody can give him a mic, we'll start with the question and we'll take it. So when you ask question, please be very direct to the question. And your name, and just the question, and direct it to whom you want to ask the question.
My name is Dibyajyoti Pokhrel, and to Mr. Singh, what is the plan for plastic-free Coca-Cola? Okay, wait, next question is for...
No, let's limit to one question, so that we can give opportunity to another one.
Same related question to Mr. Jairam. What do we do with medical waste?
Okay. Thank you. We'll take 2 questions and then answer it together.
I thought there were already 2 questions.
From the next person, yes. Is there anybody? Or we should, okay, yes.
I'm Vikas Rajbangshi. My question is to whole crew. What is the possibility to get achieved having negativism?
Sorry?
Negativism.
So can you repeat the whole question?
What is the possibility to get achieved by having negativism?
Negativism. So you want to, how do we take out negativism? Is that the question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so we'll start with Ambush.
Good question. Of course, let me start by saying what is, so I'll break your question in 2 parts. There is plastics and then there is PET, which is a form of plastic, generally what people see it as. One part of it is completely recyclable and reusable. The other part is we're still struggling with. So Coke bottles are PET bottles. But having said that, this can be recycled, and I can talk about some initiatives that we're doing in Nepal itself. Our goal in Nepal is to be PET neutral, which means recycle as much PET that you use. It might not be only of your brand PET, you might be recycling some of maybe a competition Pepsi as well. By 2022, completely in Nepal. Global goal, however, we have, and this is part of our global commitment as part of SDG as well, but it started off on its own. We have something which we call a world without waste. So by 2030, Coca-Cola company globally and in all the markets that it operates, it will be generating lesser waste, and whatever waste that gets generated will be 100% reused or recycled. We will create environment and platforms where you can do it. Coming back to Nepal specifically, so what we are trying to do or what we have done so far, long time back, I think 2014, before my time, there is this NGO, Himalayan Climate Initiative, some of you might have heard of it, HCI. They started a campaign on plastic ban. They also started a campaign on PET recycling. They called it Nagar Mitra, wherein what was happening was rag pickers would collect plastic bottles, get it to a certain collection site, wherein it would get processed, baled, and made reusable for future recycling. That project, Nagar Mitra project, was a partnership between HCI, Coca-Cola, GIZ, And one more part that I'm forgetting. That project is still on. We have not reached the goal that we wanted to reach, but it was a start. It was way before the SDG on plastic came in. But having said that, the journey is there, commitment is there. We have not reached there as yet. But if we don't reach there, today I'm glad you're asking us this question. My colleague over here, he went on to ban plastic bottles in his plan, wherein I would go on to him and say, packaging in some form or the other is going to be there. We also have, unfortunately we don't use it in Nepal as yet, we also have something known as plant bottle. Plant bottle is basically, roughly 40% of the bottle is made out of biodegradable product. So bamboo, grass, all that gets into this. Right now it is not economically viable at the scale that we are doing it. I'm sure innovation, reusability and public knowledge is going to ensure that all our goals of being 100% neutral happens much before the commitment of 2030. Because you're not going to forgive me. I can't stand here and win an argument with you, which I might, but tomorrow you'll stop consuming it. You simply go ahead and say, oh, this brand is bad, or then you're not even talking to me. So your knowledge, your participation is going to ensure that all of us, all the industry, not just Coke, do all that. So that was on PET. On plastics, I'm sure there are other plastic companies that are working on solutions to ensure that they minimize the use. So there are 3 steps. One is try and reduce as much as that you use. So in our bottles, you will see it becoming lighter by some technology. Or reuse, or move to a different platform altogether. So on all these 3 aspects, I'm sure all the other industries are working as well.
So, hospital waste.
Yeah, so very quickly, firstly, don't create waste, right? I mean, you can't not create waste, you will. But for example, one of the things we've started doing is we just implemented an EMR. So we will go paperless maybe in the next 2-3 months in, let's say, the OPD, then we go paperless in the IPD. We've put together a PAX with a Japanese partner, so we will stop giving films. So people just have to download a link. You don't need to carry those big films unless they ask for it, for which they'll have to pay. So we make it difficult. We'll make it more expensive for them to create waste. So this is one way to reduce the kind of waste. We're also working on a plan to actually create a very low weight, what do you call it? Sorry, a lightweight software program that can be used by hospitals across the country so that this can be done from anywhere, because today software is expensive, people try to rip you off. So we're trying to create a program which we can just give it off, and we're working on that. So this is one. Second, as far as the general waste is concerned, I think some policy changes need to happen in this country. Some of it is, I think, not very progressive in terms of making it easier and cheaper. But there are programs. So we firstly disaggregated at source, and then we're going to be certified by NABH and then by JCI, which has a very clear program of how you deal with biomedical waste, how you deal with solid waste, etc. So, and there's a lot of training. And mind you, nurses, you can just get a small prick and die of Hep C. It's a very dangerous place, even for staff. So we are extremely worried about some of these things. And there are programs in place which we are going to give out to all the hospitals free of cost when we launch the hospital in February, so that this becomes more pervasive. Otherwise, waste management is a long topic we should discuss offline. It's too complex.
Yeah. So the question about how do we come out of the negativism, I would like if Renaud can answer that.
Yeah, I'll get to that, but I just want to throw it back at, not at you, because I don't want to, No, not Abdullah, the guy behind you who asked the question. Don't be paranoid now. No, but to all of you, because it's I've been there. I've been sitting, and then throwing questions at a panel, and it's kind of easy. Don't take this personally, please. There is a goal, SDG 12, which is one of my favorite, because it talks about sustainable production, which is what those gentlemen are giving examples of. But it also continues and says responsible consumption. And that's where you guys fit in. Right? Because when you say, don't waste, he actually means it. We all have a responsibility in this. And it's very easy, we always, it's the responsibility of the companies of Coke not to use plastic. It's the responsibility of Turkish Airlines not to pollute by, how are they going to make a business if they don't fly their planes? I mean, you cannot, cycle and think that by cycling you can take off. Well, you can try, it won't work, all right? So, unless you're really good. But we all have in our daily habits a responsibility as consumers to really think through. I've learned, for example, how to refuse straws in restaurants and cafes now. I just don't thank you, I just won't take it. Or when I go to Batbatini, or Sailways, no preference, I say, Big C, I just named them all, no, I won't take your plastic bag, thank you very much. Right? I wish they would make me pay for the plastic bag. Right? So I think we all have a shared and common responsibility in also not always waiting for something to happen. Medical waste is something as UNDP we're getting into. Very often when I ask the director of a health, they say, we're waiting for the ministry to take policies. Why are you waiting? Why are you waiting? If you wait for the ministry to take, you can wait forever. Right? So I think there has to be, of course, coherence. It would be easier if there was a policy, but not having a policy is not an excuse to not do something. Right? And I think this is what we're seeing in Nepal, and this links to the question about negativity and cynicism. I think more and more, partly because the population in Nepal is so young and so tuned in through social media and other issues about what's happening in the world, and you all have a conscience. Right? And I think for this, I've been here now 4 years, and I feel it myself as a guest to this country, because when I look at the mountains, and every morning I go like, wow, when we see them, that's another issue. When we see them, I go like, wow, they're fantastic. We need to keep them. So somewhere in, down deep, you have this responsibility as a citizen of the host country of Everest and of the Himalayas. We need to leave this behind us for the next generation. So it's right there in your face all the time. It's like when you live on the beach, you see the ocean every day. You won't see the wave crush with turquoise water. You don't want to see what we see more and more, either organic weed, which is actually not a good sign but a pollutant, or even worse, solid waste being thrown back on the beach. Right? So we have to be really conscious as individuals that we are consumers, and we will never give up on this, because actually we want more all the time. We're very greedy as human beings, but we need to be smart about it and take responsibility, which starts by our day-to-day activities and actions. That's why when you see somebody throw somebody, no, they don't throw anyone, throw something, sorry, out of their car window or behind a motorbike, stop them and say, oh, you've lost something, sir. Because they wouldn't do this at home. You don't throw something in your living room when you're finished the package. And if you do, well, I don't think your parents would approve. Right? So why do you think you can do it on the streets? Just because it's the responsibility of the municipality to pick it up for you? I don't think so.
I guess your question is also answered by what he said. So we are towards the end of this panel. Which was going over. We have just started. That's
warming
true.
up here.
We are warming up here. True. So I have 2 more questions, which will help you to do that. So we have talked about different industries that you represent, and also what does UN or the SDG expect from all of us. Now, what does these organizations or companies, or you as an individuals, think that should be done in partnership? Now I'm talking about the last goal, the goal 17, which is about partnership for the goals. So how can we create that partnership amongst us and with the UN or the government or the youth in general, so that we achieve it very easily? As Renaud very well said, it is not the responsibility of one individual or one organization. It is a mutual responsibility of the world citizen. So how do we do that? And I just want to hear from you, like, what do you have to say about that?
No, I think, and that's the power of this particular SDG, because it makes people work together. And I think if we start working together, we don't need anybody's money. It's just that we're pretty bad at working with each other. So we started doing a few things already. Number one, in Nepal, we don't even have a population registry for cancer. So when I came to this country, I wanted to know how many people are dying of cancer. We don't know. So we now have a body which is now going to look at, by district in this country, how many people are dying of cancer. We just got some data, the Nevaris, the Brahmins, by caste, by food habits, by district. So what we're going to do is create data, so you know who is dying of cancer where. So if you come to know that a particular province, women over 60 years are dying of cervical cancer, it's probably because of poor sanitation. You need public policy on improving sanitation, etc. for HPV. Boom, you're making a difference, right? Second thing, when I came here, just like in India, we see people getting money if they get cancer, right? There's a scheme called the Bipana scheme. You get 1 lakh rupees if you're afflicted with cancer. But you know what I found out? Almost everybody takes the money and dies, right? The reason for this is the mortality stats is 77 to 82%. So out of 100 people, 77 to 82 are dying. And the problem is that you look at the continuum of cancer, by the time you're suspected of cancer, then you detect that it is cancer, then you actually get a final diagnosis it is cancer, and then you start your treatment for cancer, and then you either live or die. But in Nepal, what I found, from the time you get your final diagnosis that you're cancer to you actually starting your treatment is 6 months. I mean, it's a death sentence already. You're done. So therefore, we started a simple project with an NGO. We're getting congenitally blind women. So these are blind women who've been blind by birth. But the good thing is, there's always a good thing and a bad thing, right? When you can't see, you can hear well. And you can sense. Your tactile perception is great. So I got these few blind women, because when women do their own clinical breast exam, they can only pick up a lesion if the lesion is more than 20 millimeters. Otherwise, you won't find it. If you go to a doctor and she does your palpation, she can get it if your breast lesion is maybe 10 to 15. But you know, these blind women, they pick up 6 to 7 millimeters. Now, if a blind woman can pick 6 to 7, no chemo, no radio, none of that crap. You're able to save lives. And this is where we can partner with NGOs, with finance companies, banking companies. You give jobs to a few blind women who otherwise wouldn't have jobs. You're actually picking up stuff without a mammogram. I mean, how many mammograms are there in this country? We also started another program with the traffic policemen. I started seeing, of course, I must admit that the traffic discipline in Nepal is far better than India. People follow rules and they don't honk. In India, they don't follow rules and the only thing they do is honk. But having said that, given the situation, the road traffic accidents in our country, in Nepal, is staggeringly high. And the persons to see this accident first is the I don't know what you call it, the person who stands in the, whatever. But there's a name, anyway. So what we did was, most of the times, this guy is not trained. So I've seen people in accidents, the guy out of good, the politician who died in India, for Gopinath Munde, the guy had an accident, the traffic policeman thought he was helping and he gave water, he killed him. The thing is, sometimes, you have issues when you're concussed. So we are now training the traffic policemen on first aid, on how to deal with accidents, how do you take care of your head, how do you bind them, and then we start this training program. So this is again a collaboration, so we prevent unnecessary deaths. I already spoke about what we're doing with children. And finally, we're trying to use big data. So what we're trying to do is today, wherever human beings can be replaced, they will be replaced. And I think must be replaced because we bring in a lot of bias. But we're going to use a lot of data because today we don't have any radiologists in the country. So you don't see lung nodules. But today we've got access to technology which can pick up lung nodules which are very small. You don't even need to see the patient. I just need to see the CT or the MR. This can bring a patient in early. We prevent a lot of problems. So I think working with tech companies, finance companies, for example, one of the problems, Anukul, I saw in the cancer registry was they depend on these ladies called FHCVs, I forget the full form. But what is the incentive for the lady to tell me in the center that this person died of this cancer, was this age? There's no incentive. She has to collect her money from somewhere. But if I can transfer money to her mobile directly, without it going through, some Babu and all these guys, she will be motivated. So there I can partner with you and say, hey, you have this app, you give me this data, I approve it, money comes to your cell phone. Pachak, it's done. So I think there are a lot of such collaborative possibilities which can make practical impact pretty quickly. And I think in Nepal, it can happen so fast because it is eager. The country is eager, the youth is eager. And I don't think we should wait for the government, as he said, because you can wait forever. If you want to do it fast, the only way, it is private participation, but you need the government, so we include everybody. So, yeah.
True. The same. Renaud, do you have to say anything on the partnership, adding up to what you said?
It is so obvious to us. I think we're preaching the converted here. We all know that alone we can't do it. We need to work with others. I think what we see and why we are optimistic is that the barriers are falling. Right? People less think in silos than we did before. One, it's partly because, again, the youth factor. Also because it's easy. Technology makes it so easy. Nothing is hidden. Everything is transparent, whether we want it or not. That's another issue. But everything becomes transparent. So we are pushed, right? We, as the UN, we've also had to question ourselves. Because before we would but we will mostly work with governments. We are an intergovernmental. I'm so tired and sick of people saying that UN is an NGO. We're not. We're the opposite. We're a triple government organization. 93, sorry. New ones. So I should know the number. There we go. So, I think now we also need to learn how to talk to business people. And that's the learning we've had to make. Because we need to appreciate that those gentlemen are here ultimately to make money for their shareholders or their owners, whatever it is. That's the number one thing. If we want them to do something else, we cannot forget that. Otherwise, they would sack all those people, and then we have a problem with SDG 8 again. Right? So it's a virtual cycle, but we need to speak the same language and adapt to their needs. Otherwise, we won't reach out to them.
Very true. So it's not important to do a very big thing for a big impact. And that's a very big example, which I was talking with Mr. Anukul before this panel. And I'd like to now ask Mr. Anukul to share the thing that he was sharing at the first time. Yeah.
We want the flower story. Give us the flower story.
So that's the flower story. So he asked me to keep shut till now. Okay. So what had happened, our bank completed 25 years last year, July. So we were just going through our records and we found we spent about 8 to 10 lakhs a year on giving bouquets. Because, like he said, now everything is we have all the data, so it comes up. How many bouquets? The computer told us what this is. So you look at the figure, 8 lakh, 10 lakh. So that is what was put in the records as bouquets or flowers. It could be even more. So we said, instead of this, why don't we put this? And then what happens in all the case, on the way out, they'll just keep the bouquet somewhere or go away. And the more important the person, the less he needs these flowers and the less he's interested in carrying them. You give such a big bouquet thing and it sticks to you somewhere and spoils your coat. So what we did was we were thinking a lot of these SDGs as to how to improve the environment. So let's do tree plantation, and we were helping out people all across the country in a sundry kind of a manner. You have some river flowing and you plant 5 trees, and the moment you turn your back, this guy, the cow has come and eaten them, or this. The nursery guy who's put it takes it back and gives it to somebody else who plants it somewhere else. So we said this cannot be done for a bank like us. We just cannot do it. So what we did is that is also one of these 17th one here, partnership to achieve the goals. We got hold of all our clients and told them whether you like it or not, we are going to plant trees in your premises. and preferably not leased premises, owned premises. It's a very difficult thing if a managing director of a international bank calls you up and says, look, I'm coming to your house and 10 trees are going to be planted. It's a difficult task. But we could manage with Pashupati, Nath, Trust, we could manage with Lumbini. And all across the country, on a single day, just as a test, we could plant 2,500 trees. And these trees are all coded. We know where each of them. One of the CA firms in this country has got it audited, and we are auditing every month by physical visits. So currently we have 10,000 tree kits, saplings we call them, whatever. They are there. And what we do now is whenever a guest comes in our building, or we go and call upon somebody, we carry certificates. Where it is verifiable, I will say, Abdullah, I've got 25 trees planted in your name. They're at Chapa. In so-and-so village, you can have a look, here's a photo.
A lot of Chota Abdullahs.
Yeah, Chota Abdullahs.
That's when he comes.
So would you do this?
But I'll be paying for it for a whole year, and there'll be some agency which is a normal, proper agency which is going to do that, and we'll be looking at it personally. My staff is going to go and see. It is like he said, the responsibility of all of us. So it is not like the office has given a contract and there is a contractor and somebody in the office manager department is doing. No. Any of us walking by, if you go to Pashupati Nathji, just climb up and see their trees there. If you are visiting Lumbini, I will tell you where to find those 500 trees. Have a look and you will know which are the 25, 50, depends on how deep a relationship is. You give big deposits, big money.
We are not a client. Would you still plant?
No, you are a client.
I know, a small client.
No, not
Not the big
your
client.
boss.
Yeah, but so would you still plant?
Yes. So this year we have decided on a figure. It varies between 10,000 to 1 lakh. Because we want to sustain it also. And these trees are fruit-bearing trees. They are not the normal ones. No tulsi trees and all, nothing of that sort. They are fruit-bearing. And I will just end because you wanted me to end. One more thing is where we are going to partner with a lot of industries who have taken loans from us, who have got our ATM machines with them, who've got whatever, is this point number 8, decent work and economic growth. This is where some of our training institutes will come up. And whether my business partners will like it or not, some of these people will have to get employed. So this is what we had, and I'll end up with one more thing. Doing all this, like he said, you can't keep your bosses happy all the time. But if it is there in the business process, through the board, where the bosses are there, they have no choice, they can't back out. They can't back out. Like my bank, it's an international bank, then there is Standard Chartered also. We don't lend against shares. We don't lend against land. We ask them, why do you want, what do you do with that land? So unless you're setting up an industry or something, we'll not give you that money. But we are losing a lot of money because of that. But it is in our loan manual. So this is another way where these SDGs are fitted in.
Very true. Thank you for talking about that. To end this panel with a very small tagline that I would ask, not a whole paragraph thing, a small tagline, which on the audience we see a lot of young people, and most of them have their own startups and things as such. We are talking about on the audience, there are the people who are student, and as well as a lot of them have startups. So we are talking about big industries, banking and finances. What is that one tagline that you would give to them so that they can also be a partner to SDGs? And because this is a conclusion, it's a hard job, I know, but.
It's not all that hard. Don't be a fool. Adopt SDG. Otherwise, whether individuals or businesses, as Rena was saying, you have to be part of it. The form of SDG, scale of it, all that will differ, but until and unless you don't believe it in yourself, you're being foolish. If your shareholder does not believe in it, in our cases, like you were being, Rena said, he or she is being foolish as well. Because ultimately, business will thrive only if
it is sustainable. Very true. Thank you so much, all the panelists. Okay, so he wants to add up one tagline and then we'll...
Yeah, I think two things. This is the land of Buddha. So I think self-awareness for me and interdependence. If you understand that those two, I think it would go a long way.
Okay, so...
It's a young audience.
Yeah.
I work with lots and lots of young people. So I really love Coke. When I get depressed, I drink Coke. Okay. But
Not Johnny Walker.
yes, Johnny Walker.
With Johnny Walker. It's Coke with Johnny Walker.
Now we should not get into brands, please.
The challenge here for all of you is like Coke, but what do you do about the container? So but he said like we have to innovate now. There are people here with bamboo things and whatever.
not just
Drink Coke.
innovate. When you
Get it through the fountains.
I will go back to what Renaud was saying. When you drink Coke, you have a bottle with you. What we do in office, before we shut the closure, so once it is over, before we shut the closure, we squeeze it so that it takes less space. And then there are two separate bins. One is for recyclable waste, PET now can go in there, and then the other is wherein plastics now can go. So just put that bottle in that. In certain part of the world, we have started 2-bin campaigns in households as well. So you start segregating your waste. You start being responsible about what you generate as well. Not just PET, I would also encourage about water as well. So when you use water, be responsible about where you use water, as industries like us have to be. So.
Very true. Thank you so much for this amazing discussion, being so frank to what we have been speaking. All these things have been reporting is done, so you'll be receiving that on our website if you have missed some points on that. Yeah, thank you.